One of the big hardest questions out there is why should I believe in a God that I can't see? That's probably one of the most honest questions a person can ask. I know I did. Why should I believe in a God that I can't see? I've heard people say, if God is real, show him to me. And I understand that question. I really do. But I think there's another question that should be asked. Do you only believe in the things that you can see? Because you can't see love, but yet you can see the evidence of love. You can't see gravity, but when I drop this pen, you can see what it does. You can't see the wind, but when the tree starts swaying around and moving, you know it's there. The truth is, some of the most real things in our lives are invisible. So when somebody says, "I've never seen God," my response is usually, "Maybe you have. Maybe you just weren't looking." Because I look around and I see evidence everywhere. I see a universe operating with order instead of chaos. I see a human body made up of systems so complex that the smartest minds on the earth still can't fully explain. I see DNA carrying more information than entire libraries. I see a sunset that no human being can improve. I see a conscience inside people that tells them right from wrong, even when nobody is watching. And I have a hard time believing that all of that came from absolutely nothing, because every building has a builder, and every painter has a painter. Every design has a designer, yet somehow we're told that the most complex things in existence designed itself. Okay, sounds great. That takes more faith than believing in God. But for me, it goes deeper than creation, because if all I had was creation, I could believe there was I would believe that there was a creator. What convinced me was what God did in people's lives. I've watched angry people become gentle. I've watched addicts become free. I've watched broken marriages heal. My own marriage. I've watched people who had every reason to quit find hope again. I've watched my own life change in ways I can't explain apart from Christ. The old Mike thought life was about chasing the next thing, the next paycheck, the next accomplishment, and the next goal. And every time I got what I thought would satisfy me, there was still something missing, because the human heart is always searching for something bigger than itself. And we were created that way. That's why people spend their entire lives looking for the meaning, looking for purpose, looking for peace. The question isn't whether we're worshiping something, the question is what we're worshiping: money, success, comfort, politics, relationships. Everybody gives their life to something, and none of those things were designed to carry the weight of your soul. Only God was. And then there's Jesus. You can debate philosophy all day long. You can argue about science, but eventually you have to deal with Jesus, a man who stepped into human history and changed the world forever, a man whose teachings are still being discussed 2,000 years later, a man whose followers were willing to suffer and die rather than to deny what they saw, a man who claimed to be God, was crucified publicly, buried publicly, and whose tomb was found empty. At some point, every person has to answer the same question. Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do you say that I am?" Because Christianity isn't ultimately about proving God in a laboratory. It's about whether you'll trust the evidence that's already in front of you. And here's what I've learned: faith isn't believing without evidence, faith is trusting where the evidence leads. For me, the evidence points to Christ, not just because of what I read, but because of what I've seen him do, not only in the world around me, but in the man staring back at me in the mirror. If you're waiting to see God with your eyes before you believe, you'll always want one more sign. But if you open your heart and honestly seek him, you might discover he's been revealing himself to you all along. Romans chapter 1 verse 20 says, "For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made." God bless, brothers and sisters.